Welcome to the Fear Files channel. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will make you question what we know about the boundary between life and death. This is a case that happened quite recently, in the era of remote work and endless video calls, when our computer screens have become windows into the lives of colleagues. But what if these windows sometimes show more than just real people on the other side of the camera? Mark Johnson worked as a programmer in a large IT company in Seattle. 32 years old, a promising specialist, a favorite of the team. He was one of those people who are always ready to help, explain complex code, support with a joke during a tense deadline. There was always something witty about his Slack status, and he invariably appeared on calls with a mug of coffee and a slight smile. An ordinary guy, of which there are thousands in the tech industry. Nothing special, nothing that foreshadowed what would happen next. It all started on Monday morning. The team gathered for a standard weekly call via Zoom. 10 people, distributed in different cities, habitually joined the conference. Someone was late, someone forgot to turn on the camera, someone apologized for the noise of repairs at the neighbors. Commonness, routine, and suddenly someone asked, "Where is Mark?" He is usually always the first to enter. We checked the list of participants. There was no Mark. We wrote to him in private messages. Silence. It was strange, but not critical. Maybe he overslept. Maybe the internet went off. Maybe it's an urgent matter. Happens. But Mark didn't show up on Tuesday either. His Slack status remained green, showing active, but he did not respond to messages. I haven't read them. Project manager Sarah began to worry. She called Mark's mobile phone. The subscriber is unavailable. I wrote an email. No answer. I asked the HR department to contact the contact persons from his questionnaire. We found his mother's number. The woman did not answer immediately. And when she did, there was such emptiness in her voice, such an absence, that Sarah immediately knew that something terrible had happened. Mark died on Sunday evening. Aneurysm. Sudden, without warning. He was sitting at the computer, working on a personal project, and just stopped breathing. He was found only on Monday afternoon, when a neighbor noticed that the door of his apartment was ajar. The mother was shocked. She could hardly speak. The funeral was scheduled for Friday. HR asked not to disturb the family with unnecessary calls. The company sent out condolences. The team was shocked. Mark was young, healthy, and engaged in sports. No signs, no harbingers. He just took it and died. A separate memory thread was created in the corporate chat, where colleagues shared memories, photos from corporate parties, screenshots of his funny messages. Someone was crying. Someone was reading silently, not knowing what to say. Death always breaks in like an uninvited guest, but when it takes someone so young, so alive, it's especially cruel. And then the strange things began. On Wednesday morning, the second day after everyone learned of Mark's death, one of the developers, named Tom, noticed something unusual. He opened Slack to check the messages and saw a green activity light next to Mark's name. Online, Tom froze. My heart sank somewhere down. It must be a mistake. System glitch. He refreshed the page. The indicator remained green. Mark was online. Tom wrote about it in the general chat. The reaction was instantaneous. Several people immediately checked their screens. Yes, indeed, the status showed that Mark was active. Someone suggested that it just hasn't been updated, that the system doesn't know about his death and continues to show the old data. But Slack automatically puts you offline after 30 minutes of inactivity. And here it was active. Right now, at this second, Sarah, the project manager, tried to rationalize what was happening. Maybe someone from the family logged into his account. Is he checking documents, looking for something important? She wrote to Mark in private messages. If this is one of the relatives, please let me know. We are ready to help with any working issues. The message remained unread, but the status continued to show online. An hour later, the status changed to offline. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Just a bug, they decided. Technical problem. Slack is buggy sometimes. But on Thursday morning, history repeated itself. Mark was online again. This time, Tom decided to act. He opened Zoom and checked his contact list, and it froze. Next to Mark Johnson's name was a green dot. Available for calling. Tom called the others. They gathered in a separate Zoom conference to discuss the situation. Someone was joking nervously, trying to defuse the situation. Maybe Mark decided to work from the other world? Deadlines do not wait, even after death. But the laughter was strained, unnatural. Everyone felt that something was wrong here. Something fundamentally wrong. And then the strangest thing happened. Right during their conversation, when they were discussing this absurd situation, another participant came into their Zoom conference. The name on the screen flashed loud and clear. Mark Johnson. The room froze in absolute silence. It even became difficult to breathe. A black square with Mark's name appeared on the screen. The camera was turned off. The microphone is muted. Just a black rectangle with his name and status. Connected. For 10 seconds, no one could say a word. Then Sarah, gathering all her will, slowly said, "Mark, is that you?" The black square was silent. "If it's one of the relatives, please turn on a microphone," she tried again. Silence. A member named Mark Johnson was just on the call, unresponsive, not moving, showing no signs of life. Tom felt goosebumps run down his spine. He looked at the connection information. The IP address showed a location in Seattle. Mark's home address. His apartment. The same apartment where he was found dead 3 days ago. Someone has connected to Zoom from Mark's computer from his home right now. One of her colleagues, Jenny, could not stand the tension and left the call. 2 more followed. Only Sarah, Tom, and a couple of other people remained, too overwhelmed or too curious to pass out. They continued to look at the black square with the name of the dead colleague. Minute after minute passed. 5 minutes. 10. And then the microphone turned on. There was no warning sound, no notification. It's just that the microphone icon changed color from red to green, and sound poured out of the speakers. At first, it was just noise, a static rustle, as if someone is moving their hand over the fabric next to the microphone. Then other sounds were distinguished. Quiet, distant. It was like breathing, but strange, uneven, as if with great effort. Wheeze, or a moan. It was difficult to determine. Sarah felt her hands begin to tremble. "Mark, if that's you, please say something," she whispered. The sound has changed. Now, it was definitely breathing. Heavy, wet, like a person who tries to talk but can't. Like someone who has forgotten how the vocal cords work. Tom wanted to disconnect. His fingers were already hanging over the finish button, but some part of his brain demanded to stay, to learn, to understand. Then a voice sounded, distorted, as if passing through several layers of water or static, but recognizable. Mark's voice. He uttered only one word. Cold, long, pitiful, with an intonation of such despair that Tom's heart shrank into a ball of ice. "It's cold," the voice repeated, and he passed out. Participant Mark Johnson withdrew from the conference. Zoom showed a standard notification. Mark Johnson has left the meeting. The people who remained in the call looked at each other through the screens, pale, with their eyes wide open. No one knew what to say. What could be said in such a situation? Tom was the first to find the strength to speak. We all heard that, didn't we? Am I going crazy? The others nodded silently. Sarah called the company's IT department. She explained the situation, trying to sound rational, although everything turned upside down inside her. System administrator Kevin promised to check the logs and find out what was going on. An hour later, he called back with the results. Mark's account has indeed been active over the past 3 days. Connections to Slack, to the corporate network, to Zoom, all from his home IP address. Last activity time, 40 minutes ago, exactly when Mark entered their conference. Kevin said that this is technically impossible. The computer cannot turn on its own and connect to services without entering passwords. Even if someone hacked the account, it would be visible in the security logs. But there was nothing suspicious there. All connections looked perfectly legitimate, as if Mark was just working from home as usual. Maybe someone in the family has access to his devices, Kevin suggested, though there was uncertainty in his voice. Sarah contacted Mark's mother again. The conversation was difficult. The woman said that there was no one in her son's apartment. The police sealed it after the discovery of the body, then returned the keys to the family. Mother went there only once, last night, to pick up the documents for the funeral. She saw Mark's computer. It was turned off. She didn't even turn it on. Nobody turned it on. When Sarah cautiously asked if anyone else could have access to the apartment, her mother replied categorically, no. Mark did not have a girlfriend, close friends who would know the code to the door. Only family, and they definitely did not touch his equipment. Tom could not sleep at night. He lay in the dark, replaying that voice in his head. It's cold. Why this word? What was Mark trying to communicate? Or was it not Mark at all? Maybe someone's cruel joke? But who would come up with such a perverted sense of humor? And how to explain all the technical details? Tom opened his laptop and checked his Slack. 3 o'clock in the morning. Mark's status, online. The green indicator shone brightly and clearly, like a beacon in the dark. Tom did something that he would regret later. He wrote to Mark in private messages. If you're really there, give a sign. Write something. Sent. The message remained unread. Minute. 2. 5. Tom was about to close the laptop, convincing himself that it was stupid, that he was acting paranoid. And then an icon appeared under his message. Prince. 3 dots flashed. Someone was typing an answer. Tom's heart was pounding so hard that he could hear a pulse in his ears. The dots continued to flash. 10 seconds. 20. Minute. It's like someone started writing but can't finish. Or he forgot how to do it. Or he thinks about what exactly to say from the place where he is now. Finally, the message came. Just 2 words. Help me. Tom slammed the laptop shut so hard that he almost broke the screen. He sat up on the bed, holding his head in his hands, trying to calm his breathing. It's impossible. The dead don't write in Slack. The dead do not go to Zoom. The dead do not ask for help. There must be a rational explanation. Probably. But which one? Break-in? Virus? Some kind of program set up in advance. But why? For what purpose? Mark was not a man prone to dark jokes. He did not plan his death. It was sudden, accidental. The next morning, Friday, the day of Mark's funeral, the team gathered again for the call. This time it was not a working call, but rather a group therapy session. Everyone was exhausted, frightened, confused. Sarah offered to temporarily block Mark's account to stop this oddity. Kevin from IT said that he had already tried, but ran into technical problems. The system refused to deactivate the account, giving incomprehensible errors. It was as if something was resisting the removal. And again, right as they were talking, Mark Johnson walked into the conference. This time his camera was on. Everyone froze, staring at the screen. What they saw could not be described as just an empty room or a static image. There was darkness on the screen, almost absolute, with barely visible outlines. It looked like a room filmed in complete darkness by a night camera, or something else, to a place where there is no light in principle. Gradually, as they watched, hypnotized and terrified at the same time, details began to emerge in the darkness. Something was moving, slowly, barely noticeable, shadow in the shadows, a silhouette that could be a human figure or it can be a game of imagination. The camera was shaking a little, as if the device it was mounted on was vibrating or on an unstable surface. Then a face appeared in the frame, or rather, what was once a face, pale to blue, with sunken eyes and open mouth. It moved closer to the camera, filling the entire screen, and although the details were blurred, distorted by poor lighting and poor image quality, everyone recognized Mark's features. Distorted, deadly, but his. Jenny screamed and left the call. The others followed, one by one, pressing the finish button with trembling fingers. Only Sarah remained, paralyzed by horror, unable to take her eyes off the screen. The face on the screen continued to stare at her, motionless as a mask. And then the lips began to move. There was no sound. The microphone was turned off, but Sarah could read lips. One word repeated over and over again. It's cold. It's cold. It's cold. Sarah finally found the strength to pass out. She closed her laptop, moved away from the table, and burst into tears. Later, she could not explain why she was crying. Out of fear? From grief? From the absolute impossibility of understanding what is happening? Maybe from everything together. By evening, the story had spread throughout the company. Someone took the video from the screen during the call, although Sarah later asked to delete it. Rumors grew and transformed. Some colleagues from other departments demanded explanations. HR tried to reassure people by talking about technical glitches and the need for an investigation. But everyone who saw it with their own eyes knew no technical glitch could explain what they saw. On Saturday morning, Mart's mother called Sarah. The woman's voice trembled. She could hardly contain her panic. She did not sleep at night, exhausted by the funeral and grief, and decided to go to her son's apartment again to collect his personal belongings. When she opened the door, she heard sounds. A voice came from Mark's room, where his computer was. Lots of voices talking at the same time, like in a meeting. She came closer and found out it was a recording of their rally teams. The computer was turned on. Zoom was open, and an old recording of a work call that Mark had made a few weeks ago was playing. The mother swore that the computer was turned off when she left yesterday. She personally checked all the sockets, unplugged the extension cord. But now he was working. The faces of Mark's colleagues flashed on the screen, discussing some work issues. And in the corner of the screen, in the small window of the video stream, was Mark's own face. Alive, smiling, as he was 2 weeks ago. The recording was played in a circle over and over again. The mother said that she pulled all the wires out of the wall, took the laptop and hard drive, everything she could find. I took it to my home, but now he is afraid to turn it on. He is afraid of what he will see there. Sarah advised me to give all this to one of the technical specialists, let them figure it out. Or even destroy. Just destroy and forget. But the story did not end. On Monday, a week after Mark's death, the status of his Slack account changed. Instead of the usual inscription, a message appeared. Someone, please turn this off. I can't stop. It's cold here. It's so cold. Help me go. The message remained on the screen for a few minutes, then disappeared. Kevin from the IT department offered a radical solution. Completely delete all Mark accounts from corporate systems. Not just deactivate, but erase. Delete his profile from Active Directory. Clear all caches. Remove from the database. In fact, erase a person's digital footprint as if they had never worked for the company. It was against the protocol, against the company's policy, but everyone agreed. It was necessary to put an end to this. Kevin worked all night. He methodically went through every system, every database, every service where Mark's account could remain. Deleted my Slack profile. I deleted it on Zoom. Revoked all access certificates. Cleared VPN configurations. By 3 o'clock in the morning, he was sure he was done. Mark Johnson no longer existed in the company's digital space. Technically, it was never there. Kevin leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. It's done. At last. He closed the last window of the terminal and was about to shut down the computer when a notification popped up on the screen. Incoming invitation to a Zoom conference. From Mark Johnson. Kevin froze. It's impossible. He just deleted this account. Destroyed all the data. I checked it 3 times. The account is no longer there. It cannot exist. But the invitation hung on the screen, blinking insistently. Mark Johnson invites you to join the meeting. Kevin's hand reached for the mouse. Part of his brain was screaming, "Don't do this, close the computer, go away." But the other part, the one that had been demanding answers and solutions all their lives, could not refuse the opportunity to understand. He clicked join. The conference opened. He was alone, only his face in a small window on the screen. The room is empty. No other participants. Kevin breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe it was just a cached request stuck somewhere in the system. A technical artifact. Nothing supernatural. He was about to leave when he heard a sound. Static noise, as if someone turned on the microphone in a room with very poor reception. Then the second participant appeared in the conference. Mark Johnson. Camera off. Black square. But the microphone was active, and a cacophony of sounds poured out of the speakers. It was like a lot of voices talking at the same time. No, they don't. Whispering. Dozens, maybe hundreds of whispers, layered on top of each other, creating an unbearable sound wall. Kevin couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Entreaty, despair, fear. He rushed to the exit button, but the cursor did not obey. Hovered. The computer is frozen. The screen froze on the image of a black square with Mark's name on it. Kevin started pressing all the buttons in a row, trying to close the program, reboot the system, whatever. Nothing worked, and the whisper became louder, clearer. And now he could distinguish the words. It's cold. Help. I can't. Turn it off, please. Over and over again, like a jammed record. Kevin physically pulled the power cable out of the laptop. The screen went dark. Silence. He sat in the darkness of his home office, breathing heavily, feeling cold sweat run down his spine. Battery. The laptop had a battery. The screen lit up again. Zoom was still open. The black square was still there. And now the camera turned on. What Kevin saw on the screen deprived him of the ability to scream. It was not a room or a face. It was a space that should not exist. Endless darkness, but not empty. Filled with movement, shadows, shapes that almost, but not quite, took on human shapes. And somewhere in the depths of this darkness, far, far away, as if at a distance of kilometers, a lonely dot glowed. Screen, computer monitor, and a figure sat in front of him. Kevin recognized the pose. I recognized the silhouette. It was Mark as he had been in life, sitting at his desk. But he did not move. At all. Even breathing was not noticeable. Just a frozen figure looking at the screen. And on that screen, in the screen within the screen on Kevin's laptop, there was something else. Another screen. Another figure. Endless recursion. Going into darkness. The battery is discharged. The computer shut down completely. Kevin didn't turn it on again that night, and a few more nights after. By the middle of the following week, the company's management was forced to admit that something was happening that they had no control over. Mark Johnson's account continued to appear on various systems despite all attempts to delete it. Moreover, messages from other employees began. Someone received an email from Mark with a blank subject line and a blank message body. Someone saw his name on a list of participants in a calendar event that was supposed to take place in a month. Someone found a document in a shared folder that Mark's account created after his death. The company has hired an external cybersecurity firm. Specialists arrived with their equipment, began to scan networks, look for malware, and check logs. They worked for 3 days. In the end, the chief specialist, a man with 20 years of experience, assembled the manual and admitted that he could not find any traces of hacking or infection. All connections from Mark's account looked absolutely legitimate, as if a person is really sitting at his computer and working. One of the specialists, a young guy named Eric, proposed a wild theory. He was fascinated by quantum physics and talked about how consciousness can be a form of information that doesn't just disappear. That perhaps at the time of his death, when Mark was sitting at the computer connected to the network, something of him remained in the digital space. Cast, copy, fragment. Everyone looked at him as if he were crazy, but no one could offer a better explanation. Panic began in the company. People were afraid to turn on computers. Some refused to participate in video calls. HR received complaints of anxiety, insomnia, panic attacks. Several employees resigned without waiting for the end of the investigation. Sarah herself applied for a long leave, citing stress. Tom began to go to his psychotherapist, who prescribed him strong sedatives. A month passed. Mark's account activity became less frequent, but did not stop. Every few days, his Slack status would light up green for a few minutes. Sometimes messages came. Short, incoherent. It's dark, alone, forgot, how long ago, as if someone gradually loses the coherence of thinking, forgets who he was, what is happening. Mark's mother gave his computer equipment to the priest of the local church. Father Michael was a skeptical man who did not believe in demons and possession, but in order to console the grief-stricken woman, he agreed to perform a blessing right over technology. He took a laptop and a hard drive, brought it to church, sprinkled it with holy water, and read prayers. The next day, Father Michael called Mark's mother and asked her never to bring him anything like this again. There was a tremor in his voice that no one had ever heard from this calm, balanced man before. He said that after the ritual, he turned on his laptop, wanting to make sure everything was in order. The computer started. The browser opened automatically, and a page appeared on the screen with one single sentence written in huge letters. There is no God here. Only cold and darkness. Forever. Father Michael destroyed the equipment. He literally smashed it with a hammer and burned the remains. He didn't tell anyone the details of what he saw that night in church when he left his laptop on the altar and went home. But people noticed that after this incident, he began to drink more often and smile less often. And one day, during a Sunday sermon, he stopped in the middle of the talk, looked at the congregation, and said, "We don't understand what we've built. We created a new kind of hell and didn't even notice." By the end of the second month, the company decided to carry out a complete upgrade of the entire IT infrastructure. Replace servers, update all systems, migrate to new platforms. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, But it seemed like the only way to finally get rid of Mark Johnson's digital ghost. The process took 3 weeks. Each account was manually migrated to the new servers. The old equipment was written off and physically destroyed. In the first week after the migration, everything was calm. No anomalies, no extrañas connections. People began to exhale, return to normal work. Sarah returned for vacation. Tom began to sleep normally. It seemed that the nightmare was over. But on the 8th day after the migration, Jenny, the one who first screamed and left the call, received a notification on her phone. Invitation to a Zoom meeting. She opened it without hesitation, with a familiar gesture, and froze. The meeting was called The Last Farewell. Organizer, Mark Johnson. Date today. Time, right now. Jenny did not join in. She took a screenshot and sent it to the team's general chat. The reaction was instantaneous. Me too. Me too. Did you get everything? Yes. Everyone got it. The entire team, 10 people who worked with Mark, received the same invitation. They gathered in the office, in the conference room, live, without computers. We discussed what to do. Ignore? Delete? Should I inform the management? And then IT specialist Maria entered the hall with a pale face. He created a meeting on the corporate calendar, she said. Public. Available to the entire company. 750 people have been invited. The meeting was already underway. Right now. And there were 12 participants in it. 12 people from the company, out of curiosity, skepticism, or simply not understanding what was happening, came to this conference. Maria showed the list of participants on her tablet. Names of living employees. And one name, Mark Johnson. Organizer. Meeting host. Present. Tom did what no one else dared to do. He opened his laptop and joined the meeting. The others were looking over his shoulder at the screen. 12 faces of colleagues were watching from their home offices, puzzled, a little anxious, not understanding why they had been invited to this meeting. And the 13th participant, Mark Johnson, with the camera on. On the screen was Mark's room, his home office, which they all saw hundreds of times during work calls. The same bookshelf, the same posters on the wall, the same window overlooking the street. Everything is exactly as it was during his lifetime, only the light was different, some kind of strange grayish, as if filtered through a thick fog. And in the chair in front of the camera sat Mark. He looked almost normal, almost alive. The same hairstyle, the same t-shirt with the logo of your favorite band. But something was wrong. The skin was too pale. His eyes did not blink. At all. He stared straight into the camera, motionless as a wax figure. And his lips moved slowly, very slowly, though there was no sound. One of the people on the call, a person from the sales department who didn't know the story, asked Mark, "Are you there? Turn on the sound. We can't hear you." The figure on the screen stopped. The head turned slowly, too slowly, as if driven by a rusty mechanism. His gaze shifted from the camera to the screen, as if Mark had actually heard the question and was now looking at the list of participants. Then the sound turned on, and everyone heard a voice. It was Mark's voice, but distorted, filtered through some kind of filter that made it both mechanical and eerily human. "I wanted to say thank you," the voice said slowly, with pauses between words, as if every word was given with great difficulty. "For remembering, for trying to help. I've been here, stuck, in between, silence. No one knew what to answer. How can you even respond to this?" "Between what?" Sarah finally asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. The figure on the screen leaned closer to the camera. Now it was clear that the eyes were really not blinking, and something in them was fundamentally empty, like a doll's. "Between life and what's after," the voice said. I died, but a part of me remained. In wires, in the data, in the memory of the machines. I couldn't leave. I didn't know how. It's cold here. Lonely. No time. There is no light. Only an echo of who I was. Repeated over and over again. I forget. I have already forgotten my face. Your own voice. I only know that I had to be someone. Someone important. For someone. Jenny cried, burying her face in her hands. Several people on the call began to get out, unable to stand it. But Tom stayed. What can we do? He asked. How can I help you leave? The figure on the screen froze. A long pause. Then, let me go. Forget it. Stop thinking. Memory holds me. Your memory. Every time you remember, I'm here again. Stuck. Recurring. Let me go. Please. The meeting ended. It just broke off like a cut wire. All participants were automatically disconnected. The invitation disappeared from the calendars. The Mark Johnson account was no longer visible on corporate systems. It just ceased to exist, as if it had never existed. In the days that followed, the team gathered and accepted a tacit agreement. They didn't talk about Mark. His name was not mentioned in conversations. We removed his photos from the corporate website, deleted memory posts from Slack. It was cruel, unnatural, but they felt that it was necessary. That this is the last service they can do to their colleague. Let him go. Forget. Let him go. But it turned out to be impossible to forget. How can I forget the person with whom I worked side by side for 2 years? How to erase hundreds of small moments, jokes, joint projects from memory. Tom found himself wanting to message Mark asking about the code. Sarah automatically added his name to the list of meeting participants. Jenny saw his silhouette out of the corner of her eye in the office, turned around, and there was no one there. 3 months passed. Life returned to relative normality. The company hired a new developer to replace Mark, a young guy named Jason. He was not told anything about his predecessor. He was simply introduced to the team and given tasks. Jason was talented, friendly, and quickly joined the team. But sometimes, during the calls, when everyone laughed at his joke, there was a strange silence. It was as if everyone was simultaneously thinking of someone else who used to make them laugh. Tom began to notice oddities in the code. The project that Mark worked on before his death was partially completed and handed over to the team. But when Tom looked at the files, he found comments that hadn't been there before. Short lines of text inserted between functions. It's cold. Help. I forgot why I wrote this. The dates of the last change showed that these comments were added after Mark's death. Tom silently removed them and told no one. One day, Kevin from IT came to Tom's office. He closed the door and sat down without asking permission. His face was gray and exhausted. I need to show you something, he said, and took out a flash drive. I found this on old servers that we decommissioned. They did not destroy it immediately. They left it in the warehouse. I went in there yesterday, and he paused, searching for his words. One of the servers was turned on its own. No electricity. I just worked. Tom looked at the flash drive as if it were a poisonous snake. What's there? He asked, though he already guessed. Logs, Kevin replied. Mark's account activity logs. Over the past 3 months, after we deleted everything, after that last meeting. He's still there, Tom. Still trying to connect. Every day, every hour, hundreds of attempts. From a non-existent account, from non-existent devices. He can't leave. Tom took the flash drive with trembling hands and inserted it into the computer. I opened the log file. Thousands of lines of records. Attempts to connect to Slack, Zoom, corporate mail, VPN. All unsuccessful. All rejected by the system as a non-existent account. But the attempts continued. Mechanical, monotonous, like an endless loop in a program that doesn't know how to stop. At the end of the file, there was a text entry. Not a log, not a system message. Just text added in who knows how. I don't remember my name. I don't remember the faces. I only know that I have to connect. Must be online. That's all that's left. Connect. Be online. It's cold. Darkly. But he must continue. Connect. Once again. And again. And again. What should we do? Asked Kevin. There was a pleading voice in his voice. This cynical, rational computer scientist was looking for an answer from a man who couldn't give it. Tom closed the file and pulled out the flash drive. Destroy it, he said wearily. Destroy the servers. All that's left. Erase everything to the ground. And never tell me about it again. Kevin nodded and walked away. Tom remained sitting in the silence of the office, staring at the blank screen of his monitor. Somewhere deep in the digital networks, in the endless corridors of data, something that was once Mark Johnson continued to find its way back. Stuck between existence and non-existence, repeating the only action that it still remembered. Connect. Be online. Exist. A week later, the company received a letter from a law firm representing Mark's family. The mother filed a lawsuit. She demanded access to all corporate data related to her son. She claimed that the company was hiding something. That Mark's death was not just a medical incident. That excessive workload, constant pressure, endless calls brought him to a state that led to an aneurysm. The company's lawyers were preparing a defense. In the process, they asked the IT department for a complete history of Mark's work activity over the past 6 months. They wanted to prove that the load was within normal limits, that there was no pressure. Kevin collected the data and sent it to lawyers. And then I sat in the toilet for 2 hours, fighting a panic attack because I knew that there were entries in these logs that could not be explained. Activity after death. Connections out of nowhere. Lawyers either did not notice the anomalies or decided not to pay attention to them. The case never went to court. The parties agreed on a confidential settlement. Mark's mother received compensation and signed a non-disclosure agreement. Tom didn't know the details, but he had heard that the sum was considerable, significant enough that the woman moved to another state and never returned to Seattle. Jason, the new developer, once asked Tom at lunch, "By the way, whose position was that before me? Did someone quit or transfer to another department?" Tom stood still with his fork halfway to his mouth. "It's just, there's a vacancy," he said after a pause. "Restructuring." Jason nodded without insisting, but Tom could see the curiosity in his eyes. The young guy was not a fool. He noticed strange things. Unfinished projects in the repository with cryptic comments. Code written in a style that didn't match anyone else on the team. Documentation signed with the initials MJ. One night, while Jason was staying late in the office finishing an urgent task, his computer suddenly rebooted. When the system started again, an old corporate photo was open on the screen. Team photo from the last corporate party. Jason looked at the faces, trying to recognize younger colleagues with different hairstyles. And he noticed a man he had never seen. A guy in the corner, wearing a t-shirt with the band's logo, a mug of coffee in his hand, and a big smile. He was standing next to Tom, and they were laughing at something while looking at the camera. Jason zoomed in on the image. The guy's badge had his name written on it, Mark Johnson. He opened the corporate directory and entered this name. No results found. I tried to search on LinkedIn, found a profile, but it was labeled in memory. He died 6 months ago. So this was the position. Mark Johnson was his predecessor, and no one thought it necessary to tell him about it. Jason wanted to ask about it, but something stopped him. The atmosphere in the team when it came to the past. how everyone fell silent, how quickly they changed the subject, how Tom sometimes stared into the void during calls, as if he saw something that was not there. Jason decided not to get involved. Every company has its own ghosts, but ghosts don't always stay in the past. A month after Jason found out about Mark, an incident occurred during a routine morning call. The team was discussing a new project when Jason's screen began to glitch. The image rippled. The sound was interrupted. He tried to reconnect, left the call, and came back in. But when Zoom opened, he didn't see his usual conference room. It was a different meeting. An old entry, judging by the dates in the corner of the screen. 6 months ago, the same team, only everyone looked a little different. And in the video stream window was a man whom Jason recognized from the photo. Mark Johnson, lively, smiling, explaining something, gesturing with his hands. The recording was played without sound, like an old silent movie. Jason tried to close the window, but it wouldn't close. I pressed all the buttons, nothing worked. And the recording continued to go on. And suddenly Mark stopped on the screen in the middle of the sentence. Measurement. He turned his head right into the camera, right at Jason, even though it was a 6-month-old recording. And the smile slowly slipped from his face, replaced by an expression of unbearable anguish. His lips moved, forming the silent words, "Help me." Jason physically recoiled from the computer. The window finally closed. He breathed heavily, trying to convince himself that it was a hallucination, fatigue, a game of imagination. But his hands trembled when he reconnected to the real call. Tom looked at him through the screen with a strange expression. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's okay," Jason lied. "It's just that the computer froze." But at the end of the call, he wrote to Tom in private messages, "We need to talk." About Mark Johnson. Tom did not answer at once. For about 10 minutes, Jason stared at the Prince icon that appeared and disappeared, appeared and disappeared. Finally, the answer came, "Not here. Not by Slack. I'll meet you after work." They were sitting in a bar on the other side of town, away from the office, away from colleagues. Tom ordered whiskey and drank it in one gulp before he began to speak. And then he told everything, from the first strange online status to the last Zoom meeting, from the voice asking for help to the logs on the dead server. Jason listened, and his face grew paler by the minute. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked at the end. "Before I started working on his computer, in his office, on his projects." Tom looked at him with tired eyes. "What would we say? That your predecessor died, and now his ghost lives on the corporate network? Who would believe that? We didn't believe it until we saw it." "Now what?" asked Jason. "What should I do?" Tom shook his head. "I don't know. Work. Live. Hope that he is completely gone. Maybe he really left. Maybe it was all over after that last meeting. For 3 months, there were no signs. Maybe what you saw today was just residual echo. The last impulse in a dying system." But Tom did not believe in his own words. And Jason could feel it. They finished their drinks in silence and went home, each with his own load of knowledge that he did not want to carry. In the weeks that followed, Jason began to notice more and more oddities. The files that he was definitely closing at night were opened in the morning. The code he wrote found fixes, small, technically correct, but not made by him. It was as if someone was working under his account while he slept. He checked the access logs. There were no connections from other devices. All changes were made from his computer during his working hours. But he did not make them. He was sure. Jason began to doubt himself. Maybe he just forgets? Maybe he does it automatically and does not realize it? But no, he remembered every line of code he wrote. It wasn't his. One evening, while working late at home, Jason went to the kitchen to make tea. He returned 5 minutes later and saw that a Slack chat was open on his screen. Private messages. Correspondence with someone named Mark Johnson. But such a user did not exist in the system. Jason checked. However, there was a whole history of messages, starting 3 weeks ago, from the moment he first saw that recording. He scrolled up, reading. The first message was from Mark, "Thank you for taking my place. Take care of the team." Jason didn't remember seeing it. I didn't remember answering. But here was the answer on his behalf. "I will do everything I can." And then the correspondence continued. Every day, short exchanges of phrases. Mark gave advice on code, pointed out potential problems in projects, and warned about difficult clients. And Jason thanked and asked questions. But Jason didn't write it. Never. He stared at the screen, feeling reality begin to float. The last message in the correspondence was from 5 minutes ago, while he was in the kitchen. On his behalf, "Why do you show yourself to me? What do you want?" And the answer from Mark, which came a moment ago, "I don't want to be alone. It's cold in the void. You're the only one who can hear me. Please don't go." Jason closed his laptop. He sat down on the floor, leaning his back against the wall, holding his head in his hands. His phone vibrated. Notification from Slack. A new message in the same conversation. He didn't want to look, but I did. "I am sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. It's just so lonely. You can't imagine how lonely it is when no one remembers you, when you don't remember yourself. Only the cold and the desire to connect remained. To be with someone, at least with someone." Jason typed the answer with trembling fingers. "What are you? Are you really Mark?" The answer came instantly. "I don't know. I was once one. Now I don't know." Fragment. Echo. Something that can't go away and can't stay. Stuck between bits and bytes. Duplicate. Decomposing. Forgetful. But sometimes, when someone thinks of me, I remember for a moment. Warmth. Light. Life. Please don't stop thinking about me. Jason sat on the floor of his apartment, staring at his phone. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He had to answer something. But what can you say to a digital ghost that begs for memory, for existence? He typed, "I can't be your anchor. This is wrong. You must go. Really leave." 3 dots blinked. Prince. Long. For a very long time. Then, I don't know how. Tried. Every day, I try to let go. But something is holding me back. Fear? Habit? Or is it just the way the data works? The information does not disappear. It is only transforming. And I turned into it. Endless loop. Ghost in a car. Help me, Jason. You're the only one who knows I'm here. Jason closed his eyes. He was thinking about Mark Johnson, about a man whom he never knew, but whose place he took, about a life cut short at the age of 32, about a mother who lost her son, about the team that lost a friend, and about something that was left behind, unable to live or die, stuck in wires and screens. "How can I help?" he wrote at last. The answer did not come immediately. When he came, he was so tired that Jason felt it physically, like a heaviness on his chest. "I don't know. If I knew, I would have left long ago. Maybe we need everyone to forget. Fully. Erased every trace. Every mention. Every thought. Only then will I be able to dissolve. But I don't want to be forgotten. That's all I have. Memory of other people. Without her, I would simply disappear. Forever. And it's so scary. It's so scary to disappear completely." Jason got up from the floor. I opened the laptop again. I looked at the correspondence. I made a decision. He began typing a long message. "Mark, listen to me carefully. What happens to you is not life. This is not existence. This is a prison. Yes, the memory will disappear. Yes, it will be scary. But you deserve peace. Real peace. Not this endless cold repetition. Did you say that people keep you in their memory? Then I'll let you go. Right now, I'll let go of the memories of you, and you can leave. Pause. Then, is this the end? Yes, Jason wrote. This is the end, and a new beginning. Wherever you go further, there will be no cold. I promise. The last message from Mark came a minute later. Thank you for seeing me, for not being afraid, for letting go. I feel something is changing. Light, somewhere ahead. Warmth. It's warm at last. Goodbye, Jason. Live well. Live for both of us. Mark Johnson's status has changed to offline, and it never lit up again. The next morning, Jason came to the office and told Tom about the night's conversation. Tom was silent for a long time, then nodded. Maybe you gave him something we couldn't, he said. Permission to leave. We held on to him. Out of love, out of guilt, out of fear. And he could not tear himself away while someone was holding him. They assembled a team. Not a formal meeting, just a group of people in a conference room. And Tom said, let's remember Mark. For real. Not as a ghost. Not as a problem. As a person. And then we'll let him go. All together. And they told stories. Funny, sad, ordinary. About how Mark helped fix a critical bug at 3 in the morning. How he organized a corporate party for the team with his own money. As always, he brought donuts on Fridays. How he laughed at his own jokes. How he lived. By the end of the meeting, everyone was crying. But these were other tears. Not fear, not horror. Grief. Pure, human grief for a lost friend. And when they finished, Sarah said quietly, thank you for everything, Mark. We loved you. We will miss you. But now you can go. We'll let you go. The room became quiet. Not an anxious silence, full of expectation of something terrible. Ordinary, calm silence. It was as if something heavy that had been hanging in the air for months had finally dissipated. A year has passed. The company continued to operate. The team continued to make projects. Jason became a full member of the team, with his own ideas, his own style. There are no more strange connections. No messages from nowhere. No ghosts in cars. But on the anniversary of Mark's death, the team gathered after work. Not in the office, but in the park where he liked to run. They brought his favorite coffee and put a paper cup on the bench. No cameras, no screens, no connections. Just people remembering a friend. Do you think he's found peace? Asked Jenny, looking at the sunset. Tom shrugged. I hope so. I want to believe that after all this, there is something better. Something warm and light. A place without cold. They sat in silence, each with his own thoughts. And then Sarah smiled and said, remember how he said he wanted to be a cloud after he died? Drifting in the sky without thinking about anything. And everyone laughed, remembering. Because it was so similar to Mark, to dream of peace, of freedom, of an endless sky without boundaries. Somewhere in the data centers, in the endless server rooms, miles of fiber and terabytes of memory, there is no trace of Mark Johnson. All accounts have been deleted. All logs have been erased. All backups have been destroyed. The digital world has completely forgotten about it. But people remembered, not with pain and horror, not with a sense of guilt or fear. They just remembered a person, a colleague, a friend, who lived, worked, laughed, and one day left. How everyone leaves. How everyone should leave. And maybe somewhere, in a space we don't understand and never will, something that was once Mark Johnson has finally found its warmth. Finally, it stopped repeating itself. Finally, it let go and was released. Tom sometimes thought about that last Zoom meeting as he fell asleep, about the face on the screen, about the words, help me, about the coldness that was felt even through a digital connection. And he imagined a different screen, bright, warm, filled with light, where Mark is sitting with his mug of coffee, smiling and typing something not because he is stuck in an endless loop, but simply because he wants to, where there is a choice, where there is freedom. It was a fantasy, of course, consolation for the living, a way to deal with the impossible to understand. But Tom held on to the idea, because the alternative of imagining Mark forever stuck in the cold darkness between ones and zeros was unbearable. Jason continued to work at Mark's desk on his projects with his code, but now he did not feel the presence. There was no strange feeling that someone was looking over his shoulder. There were no messages out of nowhere. Only work, only code, only the ordinary life of a developer in an IT company. But one day, in the middle of the night, while finishing an urgent task, Jason wrote in a comment to the code, "Thanks for the architectural tip, Mark. Your work helped. It was common practice to thank previous developers whose code I used. But this time it was more. It was a confession, memory, and perhaps the last farewell." The screen did not blink. The computer did not freeze. No anomalies. Jason smiled, saved the file, and closed his laptop. I went out on the balcony, looked at the night sky over the city, at the millions of windows, in each of which someone lives, works, laughs, cries, exists. We'll all turn into memories, he thought, in stories that others will tell, in the traces that we will leave. Some footprints in the ground, some in hearts, some, as it turned out, in the data, but we will all leave. And the only thing we can do is to live in such a way that the memories of us are warm, so that people smile when remembering, so that we leave more light than darkness. And if something of us remains in the digital world, in this new reality of screens and connections, then let it not be a cold, repetitive cycle, not a stuck ghost, but something good. Code that helps others, words that inspire, projects that continue to live. Mark Johnson lived 32 years. He was a good programmer, a loyal friend, a loving son. He laughed at bad jokes, brought donuts on Fridays, and helped people solve problems. He died suddenly, too early, at his computer. And something of it lingered in the digital space, a fragment, an echo, a ghost. But eventually, with the help of those who loved him, he left. He really left. And this, after all, was the most human part of the whole story. Not a technological horror, not a digital nightmare, but a simple, age-old truth. For the dead to find peace, the living must learn to let go. Thank you for being with us on the Fear Files channel. Remember, in a world where we spend half of our lives online, the lines between existence and non-existence are blurring. But some boundaries need to be respected. Some doors need to be kept closed. And sometimes the kindest thing to do is to let someone go, even if a part of you wants to hang on forever. Turn off computers at night. Disconnect from the network sometimes. Live in the real world with real people. Because when it's time for you to leave, you don't want to be stuck between flashing lights and lines of code. You will want to go into the warmth, into the light, to those who are waiting on the other side. And if you ever see your deceased colleague glowing online on Zoom, remember this story. And instead of connecting to the call, just quietly say, "Go in peace." You are free. And let them go. Because even in the digital age, even in the world of artificial intelligence and infinite data, the most human thing we can do is remember with love and let go with kindness. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, not everyone who is online is alive.